Welcome to Mill History Talk, the podcast where we explore the past to better understand the profession of arms today. We dive into the campaigns, conflicts, issues, and commanders that have shaped military thinking across centuries, and why it all still matters. Whether you're an officer in training, a seasoned professional, a student of strategy, or simply curious about how history informs modern warfare, this space is for you. Our mission is simple: to foster insight, reflection, and critical thinking primarily through the lens of military history. Before we begin, a quick note. The views expressed in this podcast are of the podcast writers, hosts, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any government agency or organization. So, whether you're listening in a barracks, a lecture hall, at the gym, or in your car on the way to work, welcome. We're glad you're here. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Mill History Talk. I'm Hope, still shaking off the holiday haze, still emotionally attached to Clausewitz, and thrilled to kick off 2026 with all of you. If you're just getting back into your routine after the holidays, coffee in one hand, podcast in the other, we're really glad you're here. Today is episode 49, and we're diving into one of the most powerful and frankly intimidating institutions in modern military history: Strategic Air Command. This is the command that spent decades making sure World War III didn't happen, by being absolutely prepared to fight it.
And I'm Brian. Happy New Year to everyone listening. Strategic Air Command, often just called SAC, wasn't just another Air Force command. It was a mindset, a culture, and a global system built around nuclear deterrence. From the late 1940s through the end of the Cold War, SAC sat at the center of American national security. Today, we're going to unpack how it came into being, how it operated, and why its legacy still matters, even though SAC itself no longer exists.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's 1945. World War II has just ended. The United States has dropped 2 atomic bombs, and suddenly, the entire logic of warfare changes overnight. Up until this moment, air power theorists like Giulio Douhet had argued that bombers could win wars by striking directly at an enemy's heart. And Hiroshima and Nagasaki made a lot of people say, well, looks like Douhet might have been onto something.
Exactly, but the reality was more complicated. Atomic weapons were devastating, but early U.S. nuclear forces were fragile. Bombs were large, aircraft had limited range, and command and control systems were still developing. In 1946, the Army Air Forces created the Strategic Air Command to manage long-range bombing forces. But initially, SAC struggled. Aircraft readiness was poor, training standards were inconsistent, and nuclear planning was often theoretical rather than operational.
So early SAC was not exactly the terrifying juggernaut we imagine today.
Not at all. That changed with leadership. Specifically, one man.
Enter Curtis LeMay. And yes, you can practically hear the dramatic music swell when his name comes up. LeMay takes over SAC in 1948 and basically says, we're either going to be ready to fight tonight, or we don't deserve to exist. No pressure.
LeMay imposed a relentless culture of readiness. He standardized training, enforced strict discipline, and demanded measurable performance. Bombers had to be able to launch on short notice, navigate precisely, and deliver weapons accurately, day or night, in any weather. Under LeMay, SAC adopted the motto, "Peace is our profession." It sounds ironic, but the idea was simple. Credible readiness prevented war.
And this is where SAC starts to feel less like a military command and more like a machine. A machine that never slept.
That's accurate. SAC pioneered airborne alert concepts, ground alert status, and eventually continuous deterrence. Aircraft sat loaded, crews on standby, ready to launch within minutes. This wasn't about fighting wars the way World War II had been fought. This was about deterrence, convincing an adversary that any attack would be met with catastrophic retaliation.
Let's talk hardware, because SAC didn't just rely on one tool. This is where the nuclear triad starts to form.
Right. While SAC's core mission remained manned bombers, aircraft like the B-36, B-47, and later the iconic B-52, it also absorbed intercontinental ballistic missiles. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, SAC controlled land-based ICBMs like Atlas, Titan, and Minuteman. These missiles provided near-instant response capability and complicated any enemy's attack plans.
So bombers gave flexibility and recall. Missiles gave speed and certainty. And together, they made deterrence much more convincing.
Exactly. SAC forces were distributed, hardened, and redundant. Even a massive surprise attack couldn't eliminate them all. This logic defined Cold War strategy, second strike capability, and mutually assured destruction. Not a pleasant concept, but a stabilizing one.
We should pause and talk about the human side. Because SAC wasn't just steel and concrete. It was people living under extraordinary pressure.
SAC personnel trained constantly. Evaluations were unforgiving. Mistakes were career-ending. There was little tolerance for error because the stakes were existential. Crew members carried the psychological weight of knowing they might be ordered to execute missions that would change or end civilization.
Which makes SAC culture fascinating. Discipline, precision, checklists, inspections, all designed to make sure no one ever went rogue, but also that everyone could act instantly if ordered.
And importantly, civilian control remained absolute. No matter how ready SAC was, launch authority rested with national leadership. That balance was essential.
SAC's ultimate test comes during moments like the Cuban Missile Crisis. 13 days where the world held its breath.
During the crisis, SAC went to heightened alert. Bombers were airborne, missiles were prepared, but restraint prevailed. SAC's readiness gave U.S. leaders confidence. Confidence to negotiate rather than panic. That's deterrence working as intended.
Which is wild when you think about it. The most powerful military force on Earth existed largely so it would never be used.
As the Cold War ended, the strategic environment changed. Arms control agreements reduced nuclear arsenals. The Soviet Union collapsed. In 1992, the Strategic Air Command was disestablished, and its responsibilities were reorganized under United States Strategic Command, STRATCOM.
So SAC disappears, but its mission doesn't.
Correct. Deterrence evolved. Nuclear forces became joint, integrated with space, cyber, missile defense, and global strike missions. SAC's culture influenced everything that followed.
Here's the big takeaway. Even though SAC is gone, we're still living in a world shaped by the systems it built.
Modern deterrence, from nuclear posture to command and control architecture, rests on foundations SAC laid. Readiness, credibility, and control remain central.
And yes, Clausewitz would absolutely have opinions about this. Mostly about politics, escalation, and the terrifying clarity of purpose SAC embodied.
He would also remind us that deterrence is political at its core. SAC was never just about bombs. It was about decision-making under extreme stakes. And in some ways, it was also similar to Sun Tzu's idea about achieving your political policy without actually fighting.
And that's it for episode 49 of Mill History Talk. Again, welcome back from the holidays. Welcome to 2026, and thank you for starting the year with us. If you enjoyed this episode, share it, leave a review, and check out the show notes. We've got links to deeper reading on Strategic Air Command and Cold War deterrence over on our Substack.
We'll be back next episode, when we will be looking at how strategic deterrence changed how wars were fought in unexpected ways.
Yes, we're talking about you, Korean War 1950. And as always, history isn't dusty. It's dramatic, strategic, and very much still with us. See you next time!